Welcome on into the podcast. I'm Brett.
I'm Dorian.
And this is a Thursday throwback talking about The Dark Knight Rises, finishing out Christopher Nolan's beautiful trilogy about The Dark Knight. And so, yeah, we're just going to talk about a couple different things from the movie, have a little bit of a commentary on what we liked, what we didn't like, the characters in it, how they've changed, new characters. And just kind of like what we first thought of this movie and where we stand now. And so, yeah, I'm excited for this. Are you excited?
Sure.
Dorian's not a huge fan of this movie, so yeah. I mean, spoiler alert.
Obviously,
Neither of us are the hugest fans of this movie. I do enjoy this movie still, for different reasons than Dorian does. Dorian doesn't hate this movie either. It's just the weakest we believe in the trilogy, and so it was interesting watching it. You know, just kind of like my first thoughts of rewatching it, I guess, before I get to my first impressions of the movie in general, were not as many one-liners.
No,
it's way less Batman than the other two, I feel like.
Yeah, I was actually trying to look up like stats on that, like see how much like screen time Batman has in this movie compared to like previous movies. And what I found, I don't know how accurate it is, but he has like almost the same amount of screen time, but it just for whatever reason feels very less or just very little for like, you know, what he's actually doing.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think part of that too is like not a lot of it's action-y. It's like he's in the bat suit, but he's like talking or he's in a vehicle.
Sure, yeah.
So, anyway, Dark Knight Rises. What were your first impressions watching this movie, Dorian?
So,
because they're gonna be interesting.
So, all right. So, if you listen to the previous Thursday throwback where we talked about the Dark Knight, basically, like I just love that movie to death, and it is my favorite movie of all time, bar none. So that being said, going into this movie, hype beyond all belief. Like there was like a 4-year gap between the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises. So I was looking up every little like article, any rumor I could chase down, pretty much anything I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
To like learn about this movie, just because
I was there with you
for a while there. We didn't even know if Christopher Nolan was going to be coming back as director here.
Well, there were so many rumors I remember surrounding this movie on, you know, villains. What are they going to do? And then even before Heath died, like what's going to be next and how they're going to approach it.
Right, exactly. Which I mean, because back like earlier when Christopher Nolan wrapped up The Dark Knight, he was talking about the idea of like doing more than 3 movies, like 4 or 5 roughly. And that he said that all changed after Heath Ledger died here. So, you know, it would be interesting to see what could have been, but you know, we're not, so I digress. But no, I mean, so when this movie actually came out, it was like, you know, I was like a coordinator for like a big watching party. I got like 20 people together to like come and like see this movie on opening night in the middle of July here when it's hot out, and like wait in line outside of a movie theater for a midnight release here.
So did you go to, because I know when this came out, they showed Batman Begins and The Dark Knight in the theater as well.
No, I didn't go to that one just because.
I did.
Yeah, I know you did.
Because I think I saw you at the movie theater.
You saw me in line, and you're just like, what a loser.
Yeah, I was like, why? Why wouldn't you go to these?
I mean.
Because you got to see it earlier.
Did you?
Yeah.
Balls.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, but I think, it's kind of harder to get people to commit all day to watching Batman versus like say, okay, you know, just take a nap, go to the midnight release, and then watch a movie for 2 hours and then go home.
I think my brother was with me, and then we had like a couple friends.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Lasky was there.
Yeah,
and
maybe Jake Horn.
Yeah, maybe. So, but anyhow, so opening night comes, you know, extremely hyped for this movie. Get to the theater, watch the movie, and it was the most disappointing movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, That being said, it was one of those ones where
Wait, so this movie was more disappointing than BVS?
Yes, because BVS was kind of like an unknown quantity.
Okay, I see. But this was part of the Christopher Nolan
right.
trilogy,
I mean, when you have the Dark Knight,
it's hard to beat that, dude. Like I did not expect them to get anywhere near there.
So going into the movie, I kind of told myself, like, set your expectations right. This is probably not going to be as good as the Dark Knight. It's probably going to be on the level of Batman Begins here or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it even hit that mark, to be completely honest with you. But so a couple days go by, I go rewatch it at the theater just because I'm like, I just feel like super conflicted. Like it couldn't be like as disappointing or as bad as like I thought it was the first time I watched it here. And, after the whole hype train wore off and I just watched the movie and just accepted it for what it was, I actually enjoyed it a lot more. It's actually a, pretty good movie in a certain regard here, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say for me, I was super hyped too. Mm-hmm. I was there with you. I did all my research talking about it. Loved the rumor mill surrounding these movies, just in a general sense.
Like some of those rumors got like super crazy. Like they had like rumors about Cher being Catwoman. They had rumors of like Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber being Batgirl and Robin and stuff like that.
It was weird. It was super weird. Well, even the less obscure ones, like because this was called The Dark Knight Rises,
which is pretty much direct homage to The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I was thinking, and there was speculation. So I can't remember the name of the girl who's like Catwoman's kind of number 2. Holly was potentially a Robin.
Yeah.
And so I remember that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe they are doing the Dark Knight Returns kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that might be interesting. I wouldn't be a fan of that, but it kind of weird for them to bring Robin in now.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah. But saw the movie, thought it was really good. It definitely wasn't like the movie I thought it was going to be. Like, sure. I thought there was going to be way more action. I didn't expect Batman to be I still expected him to be Batman. I didn't expect him to go like AWOL for 8 years. And so, there was like one main thing I had a problem with, and that was at the end of the movie where I got chills, but at the same time I was like, he's not okay. So John Blake goes in to get the stuff that Bruce left him from his will, basically.
Right.
So he's like John Blake.
Yeah,
and then
try my legal name.
Try my legal name. And she's like, oh, I like that. Robin. And you're like, come on. For what it is, John Blake is the Robin
of this universe here.
Right.
Not without actually donning on the actual persona or like the crime fighting outfit.
Yeah, he is the embodiment of who Robin is, I feel like, in a lot of different ways. Yeah. Definitely more of a Dick Grayson than any of them.
Yeah, which we will discuss later on here when we kind of get to our character breakdown.
But I just hated how people were calling him Robin. Like, oh, it's Robin. I'm like, no, it's not. It's John Blake. It's not the actual Robin. It's not Dick Grayson. It's not Jason Todd.
It's more of a nod of like, as to like, what
the character represents.
Exactly.
The symbolic piece of it, which I get, but people were like, no, that's Robin. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like,
I'm going to destroy you.
Like a bunch of uneducated
I was
schmucks.
like, there's 4 Robins at the time, because I don't even think Damian Wayne was a thing.
I think he was, actually.
Maybe, so 5 that have portrayed Robin in some way.
Right, but I mean, let's be honest. The main ones that, people always go to Dick that Grayson, actually know the comics are Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake.
Yeah, those are the 3 that anyone should think of.
Yeah.
And then is it Carrie Kelly? Is that the one from
Dark Knight Returns? Yeah, I think it's Carrie Kelly. Yeah,
and then Damian Wayne.
Yeah.
So I mean that was a thing, but anyway, other than that, my first impressions of the movie, I was like, oh, that was cool. Like seeing how big Tom Hardy got, dude, that guy was next level jacked.
Yeah,
he made
jacked.
Christian Bale look like a child. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
So just kind of, how does this movie kind of differ from the previous ones?
Well, for one, I mean, the pacing is a lot slower in this movie in comparison to definitely The Dark Knight and even Batman Begins, because Batman Begins kind of has a little bit more of a slower start, but like once as you get to like the halfway point in that movie, things really start taking off, and then it's like, okay, action scene, 5 minutes go by, action scene type thing. And then Dark Knight is like legitimately like there's an action scene every like 10 or 15 minutes almost, it feels like.
Yeah.
Something going on.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, this one a lot slower. You definitely have like this is another example of like Batman like showing up like maybe almost an hour into the movie for the most part.
Yeah.
And whereas like in Batman Begins, once his Batman shows up, he was showing up all the time here for the most part. When he's in this movie, he shows up for a little bit and then, gets his back broken by Bane, and then you don't see him till like maybe the last 15
act of the movie,
15 10 minutes of the movie. So
and it took a lot for him to come out of retirement.
No, it did, yeah. And I mean, and here's the thing, like the first half and the second half of these movies, I feel like are two separate movies and two different very different tones from each other, because the first half is like kind of like what you would kind of expect from a follow-up to The Dark Knight and the aftermath and all that here, where like, Batman is essentially a fugitive on the run from the police. He has to, protect the city while at the same time, have to contend with like the police that are trying to hunt him down. And, and that's how I thought like the movie would play out like the whole way through. But then, he gets his back broken, and then he gets shipped over to like some like Arabic country and all that, into a prison. Bane takes over the city, basically declares martial law.
Yeah.
And it becomes like more of like almost like a commentary of like kind of like the degradation of like a society or of a community, essentially.
Sure.
Which that's another thing. This movie, it gets more political, I feel like, than the other movies.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That's not to say that the other two movies were completely had their hands clean of like any type of like political storytelling, because you had like Batman Begins kind of talk about police corruption. You had The Dark Knight talk about police corruption, but also terrorism and the Patriot Act briefly here with the surveillance thing here. And then, but this one, like, I think really makes it a kind of more of a central plot device here, because you have like the Occupy Wall Street mentality.
Yep.
You have like kind of like almost an anarchic socialism that kind of develops under Bane's rule and all that.
Yeah, but even a dictatorship of, ultimately he's a dictator, but he's like, it's in the hands of the people type of thing. Like, let the people run the city.
Right.
Not these cops, not these political.
Politicians or any of the appointed officials here.
So he essentially creates anarchy, but also very controlled anarchy, because his people are basically the new cops.
Yeah.
The new enforcers of the town.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also a lot of unconventional elements that are
as far as for the Batman.
Yeah, for like what people typically associate Batman with.
Sure.
Here, because you have like a football stadium getting blown up, you have a nuclear bomb, you have Batman fighting in broad daylight here. Yeah. Just a lot of weird choices, I feel like, for this movie to like actually incorporate into a Batman movie for the most part.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of those, like even a lot of those plot points didn't even have to be there necessarily for the movie to work. Like, there didn't have to be a nuclear bomb at all.
Well, and we'll get to that in a bit, but yeah, it's but no, I feel like there would have been like probably different ways you could have done it that would have been kind of more true to the mythos of Batman versus like, what you did.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it was much slower than the other two movies. I wouldn't say that because you were kind of talking about how the beginning and end kind of feel like two separate movies. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that they feel like two separate movies to me, but just different acts of one story arc.
Sure.
Like you have Bruce Wayne's journey after he's, essentially retired, and tries to come back into this because the city needs him again.
Right.
But it's definitely not as dark. And I mean that both like like tonally
and cinematography.
Cinematography wise too.
I mean, it is dark, but it's not like I mean, it's kind of interesting because like each one of these movies has like a different definition of dark. Like, they had like Batman Begins kind of be more horror, and like more nighttime shots and all that. The Dark Knight had more of like kind of a menacing dark and like kind of more of a like just like how dark the real world can be, and like just like kind of almost depressing kind of dark almost to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then this one is like essentially going on with like the whole dark where it's like, okay, this is like the worst things have ever been for Gotham essentially, but it's
the hopeless kind of
like the
bleak.
Bleak, but it's still not like as dark as I would say as the Dark Knight in terms of that respect.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of I think how it mostly differs in a lot of ways is, a lot of the shots are in broad daylight, that sort of thing. But let's take a look at the characters now.
All right.
Who do we got first?
Well, we might as well get the elephant out of the room. It's Bane. I mean, let's be honest. For the most part, this is Bane's movie. Gets a lot of screen time. He's doing a lot of things. He is kind of the guy who is pushing the plot forward for the most part here.
Yeah.
I mean, if this isn't Bane's movie, he's at least like second in contention for that spot here.
Sure.
So now here's the thing. I think Tom Hardy's voice, it's an odd choice for Bane, and obviously
super odd.
And obviously it's obviously I don't want Tom Hardy trying to do his best like a Colombian accent here or something like that. I feel like that would have just been pretty cringy. But that being said, I mean, and here's the thing, his voice is what makes him iconic as Bane.
Yeah, like, I would agree as much as I don't like it.
Because everybody, when anybody thinks of Tom Hardy's Bane, they think of his voice there and all that. And, I feel like it distracts from like what he's actually saying or what he's actually doing here. And I feel like, that was kind of a missed opportunity on that part here. I think if they went with like, say, he just has like a deep voice here or something along those lines, I think, you would probably have sold like, like what he's actually trying to say or what he's at the point that he's actually coming to get across and like actually focus on that versus his voice for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also an interesting take on Bane because he's, a revolutionary / kind of like a religious terrorist, kind of like similar to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, where they're kind of like almost like a cult military group here. And, they have, I mean, basically like every one of their members of their affiliation are pretty much okay with like, just sacrificing their lives to essentially blow up a city. Because
jihad.
Yeah, because nobody was like, had like an escape plan or like what they were going to do after here. So now I understand why Bane was, they chose Tom Hardy for Bane because you're wearing the mask, the whole movie for the most part. And you have to do like a lot of like acting with your eyes, a lot of acting with your, with like the other facial features on your face. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I understand that part here. I do wish we got like somebody like, like the Mountain or like, somebody of that stature to be like Bane, because that would be more accurate to like kind of like how Bane is in the comics in terms of like size and stature here.
Yeah, definitely a lot bigger. I'm a huge fan of the Schumacher Bane. Just kidding. No, yeah, I agree. I think the choice of having Bane in here from the terroristic standpoint was great. Mm-hmm. But he's not necessarily a Bane. Like, there's not a lot that ties him to the original Bane. I mean, from the comics,
I would say, in terms of him just being brutal and intelligent and whatnot, I think they definitely captured.
Oh, for sure, that piece.
Part, yeah,
I would say from like background, all that stuff, it's a lot different.
Yeah, for the most part,
I kind of like what they did with it, and I think it was interesting. Like the face thing that they made him wear, like was integral to like
to him, like actually being functional.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, which ended up being a weak point for him once Batman figured it out,
Yeah.
His methods are interesting, kind of like you said. I wrote down, Bane's a cult leader and terrorist, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about rising up in the fire that rises. I was like, he's like, it's happening, basically. And he makes that guy
stay on the
in that plane scene, which was that practical?
That was practical.
Yeah. So I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, wait, I think this is practical.
There are like, there is like some CGI use, like, when the wings come off, that's CGI, but yes, that is practical. They actually suspended I don't know what you would call it, but like the whole
cylinder piece,
the cylinder piece, the whole of the airplane up on like a helicopter, like thousands of feet up in the air, and shot that scene.
Yep.
So crazy.
That's pretty cool. I like that. He was trained by Ra's al Ghul.
Mm-hmm.
Too extreme. They kind of kicked him out, type of thing, which is interesting to me too.
Well, I mean, I think that was kind of a ruse, because then they later go into like the fact that, he
is the League of Shadows now, type of thing.
Well, he is the League of Shadows, but then, the real reason why Ra's kicked him out was because he had a thing for his daughter here, and he reminded him of like, the prison that essentially killed his wife. When Talia's given that whole spiel.
Yeah, but he didn't have a thing for his daughter. He's like it was like his daughter type of thing. Like he was protecting her.
Right, but he said like his only crime was that he loved me, basically.
Yeah, but love doesn't necessarily mean in a like a partner way,
romantic way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. That's how I took that one.
That would be super weird if it was that way, to be honest, though, because Bane's like got to be in his 20s when he's in the pit.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and she's like 10.
Yeah, it would be weird, but I mean, hey, Padme and Anakin here.
They're not that far apart. They're like 5 years, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, because she was 14 and he was 9.
Okay.
Anyway,
but
so yeah, he's a no nonsense kind of guy. I like that the way they made him, like personality, like just his menacing, like just his overall physical domination of anyone, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like there's like that part where he's talking to Ben Mendelsohn's character Daggett.
Yeah, and he's kind of like,
"Do you feel like you're in charge?"
Yeah. Do you feel like you're in charge? Yeah. Like they have a lot of, like, speaking of like actors like Ben Mendelsohn, they have a lot of like little parts in this movie that are done by huge actors.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
which I thought was interesting.
It is interesting. One last thing I do want to say about Bane. That guy has excellent phlebotomy skills. Like, if he can, like, find a vein and stick it into
in the plane.
In a plane while, like, everything is, like, just
falling
moving
apart
around, like, just being super unstable. I mean, in another life, Bane, in another life.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a lot to that. Even I think from the first scene, because you get Littlefinger right in the first scene.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying, like little pieces done by big actors,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Littlefinger was really that big during that time.
Probably not.
Because I think Game of Thrones.
Even Ben Mendelsohn,
Yeah.
But anyway, so like that whole scene was dope. Like the hijack.
Yeah,
the plane and
the
all
plane
that.
hijack, yeah.
But yeah, Bane's character I liked. I thought his jacket was dope. That big, like, puffy one he wears when he, like, when they go into Wall Street, basically.
Yeah, Blackgate, and, like, they're releasing all the prisoners. Yeah.
So, yeah, let's move on to the next character.
So, Batman and Bruce Wayne. So,
the Batman.
So this is more of a Bruce Wayne movie. They kind of, really show more about, like, his life and what he's doing outside of the cape and cowl.
Yeah.
And, like I mentioned before, Batman doesn't show up almost to an hour into the movie, and then he disappears again, like for almost another hour for the most part. But, he never really feels like he gets enough screen time, even though, like, it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like
it's just not interesting screen time.
Right. And well, compared to like what you see in like the other movies here, it's like, it kind of seems like, Batman's role was just to like serve a point, not necessarily be like the highlight of the movie almost, it feels like. But I do like the approach that they went with, where he's essentially a man who has lost his will to live. You know, he's kind of echoing like, how he is in The Dark Knight Returns, where, he's old, he's retired, he's no longer fighting crime, but at a certain point, he's just looking for a good death, just because life is just, not really worth living to him if he can't really be serving a purpose.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting take, like where he's just kind of like a hermit now, like no one ever sees him.
Yeah.
He hobbles around because of all his injuries from being Batman. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of route they went.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of criticisms I do have of Batman in this movie. So, for one, Bale's voice just gets super cringy in this one. Like,
he's definitely rusty when it comes to the Batman voice.
Well, it's like there's definitely parts where I'm like, okay, you should have probably tried some couple of takes on that one, buddy. Like maybe some different voice flexations or.
Well, I think it's great that we get one of the "Where is she?" like things in every movie, basically.
Yeah, like
where's the trigger now?
Where's the trigger? Where is it? Yeah. Yep. But and then there's also like, I get that this is an older and slower, Batman, but I would still want to kick more butt than he actually did in this movie.
Yeah.
Because, I don't feel like he really got like a really, really like standout part to shine. It's like, it feels like he's got to get his butt kicked like, 5 times before he can start kicking somebody else's butt type of thing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So, what else we got going on? So, also, this is legitimately the dumbest he's ever been in the trilogy here. I mean, freaking Miranda Tate. I feel like World's Greatest Detective should have seen that one coming a mile away.
No kidding.
Because, I mean, like, you barely know this lady. You decide to eventually go into like a business partnership with it. It was like, okay, yeah, fine. But then all of a sudden she shows outside your house for reasons,
Right.
And she barely knows you. So it's kind of like,
yeah,
come on, man. Like, use your brain a little bit.
Honestly.
But I do like how it does further explore Bruce Wayne's kind of psyche in this movie. I just don't know if like the finale would have been the best place to explore it. Like if you had like another movie in between The Dark Knight and this one, I felt like that might have been a little bit of a better time to kind of explore, because at a certain point, I feel like with the finale, you should have like pretty much your character's motivations already kind of like figured out, and like they're already, decided on like, who they are, who they're going to be, and all that stuff. And then it's just like, the final battle type thing,
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with you when it comes to like Batman and Bruce in this movie. Is like, man, it definitely shows, especially through the whole Miranda Tate thing. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. He's super sloppy.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have been all right if there was a payoff saying like,
this is the reason I did this.
Well,
type
like,
of thing.
or like, when like she admits that she's like Talia al Ghul, and he says, "Yeah, I know, I knew that like months ago."
Right? Yeah, the World's Greatest Detective is definitely.
He's a little rusty in this movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot for Batman's character, like as far as in my notes. It's mostly the other characters.
Sure. Which
is probably saying something. But I think he's just a crusty version of what we got in The Dark Knight, really.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shows where he's at. He's mentally defeated before he's physically defeated in this movie.
Yeah, well, I mean...
And Bane knows that. He's like, you've lost it, basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's that one line that I think is like a pretty thought-provoking line. It's like, peace has cost you your strength. Victory has defeated you here, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, that's kind of... I mean, they do explore, like you're already gone, like even you coming back, you're not really back until after he crawls out of the pit, basically.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of get the resurrected Batman, and who's not 100%, but I hate how he doesn't get any satisfying fights.
No, he really doesn't. In
like
this
the fight
movie.
with Bane, even like he does.
Like you're talking about at the end.
He's winning.
Yeah.
He beat him essentially.
But it's not as satisfying as you would want it.
Well, no, because then Catwoman rolls up and just kills him.
Yeah.
Shoots him with the bat pod.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like,
well, speaking of Catwoman,
Yeah.
so Catwoman / Selena Kyle, portrayed by Anne Hathaway. So I got a hot take here.
okay.
Anne Hathaway,
Yeah.
better Catwoman than Michelle Pfeiffer.
Wrong, but that's okay that you feel that way.
I mean, facts don't care about your feelings, Brett.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, you can't say that's a fact, but I understand where you're going with it.
I mean, here's the thing.
No, I really like Anne Hathaway as Catwoman.
Because here's the thing. Like, I understand why people gravitate towards Michelle Pfeiffer. Because, I mean, she was...
She's classic.
Well, yeah. There's nostalgia. There's classic. She was... I think she, kind of like redefined what people thought of Catwoman with her portrayal of it. Kind of like how Michael Keaton did for Batman
Totally.
way back in 89 here. That being said, it's like you look at Michelle Pfeiffer, she is not Catwoman from the comics whatsoever. She gets resurrected by cats.
I know, it's super weird.
And like has 9 lives, and she's like straight up psychotic here. Like,
yeah.
Like,
Definitely different. Not a cat burglar.
And just like, and also just slutty too here.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, Anne Hathaway's version isn't not slutty, so.
Right. But I mean,
she's using it for reasons though, to like get in and out of places or.
Right. But I mean, this is a much more comic accurate version of the character
100%,
compared
100%.
to like what we got in Batman Returns here. I mean, I do feel like she is a little underrated in this movie just because a lot of people do tend to focus on, Bane, and also they kind of dismiss her for not being Michelle Pfeiffer for the most part. But I mean, I think one scene that really speaks to like, her performance in this movie is the bar scene where she's trading in the fingerprints for like Bruce Wayne, and she's got like some pretty good one-liners in there. She's like, I don't know what you're planning on doing with Mr. Wayne's fingerprints, but I'm taking that you're gonna need his thumbprint. You don't count so good, do you? And it's like, oh yeah, there was only 4 prints on that thing here. And then the whole setup where she's like, has him call Holly to bring in the last fingerprint on the congressman's phone.
Used his phone, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, okay.
Definitely reminiscent of Batman, even.
Exactly,
like that level of intellect.
Yeah, and planning out. And then, like, she pretends like she's just, like, a bystander in the shootout and all that.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, really, really good stuff for, like, the character on that one here. Now, that being said, the redemption arc in this movie, very rushed. Like, even though this movie takes place over the course of 6 months, it's a very rushed, thing with her. And I mean, I get it. Movies, 2 hours long, pretty hard to do a good, satisfying redemption story within a movie. But I feel like if, say you introduced her like in a previous movie, and then she has the redemption arc in this movie, you actually like take some time to actually like make that like kind of come to fruition. It makes a lot more sense at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying. I think that the whole scene where she watches Bane break Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see like.
I think that's kind of when she's like, "Oh crap! Like, what did I do?
I actually did something." And even then, it's like, yeah, you do. I get like, what they were going for, because you see that like not only that she made a mistake there, but also her perceptions on like, the rich people that she despises, like, and Bruce Wayne being one of them. Yeah. She's like, oh, this is a guy that's actually putting his life on the line, even though he's like super rich here. Yeah. To like, better the city here. And I just basically fed him to the wolves.
Yep. Yeah. So, for me, I just don't like how quickly she turns it on and off. And what I mean by that is like like when she goes in there and then all of a sudden she's just like very sure
composed and confident.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
I get it. I don't like the way that Anne Hathaway portrayed that piece of Catwoman.
Yeah.
It was almost cheesy to me. And so I thought it was interesting that she could do that, but I was just like, it's just kind of cheesy.
Well, I mean but that's Catwoman in general here, you know.
I know, but like you could do a better job of it, especially if you're Anne Hathaway. I feel like.
I mean, maybe, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, in the comics, that's like how she is all the time, very self-assured and all that. And like Anne Hathaway, I feel like brings a little bit more human element to it, because you get to see like her with her insecurities and like her wrestling with decisions and all that.
Yeah, sure. I just don't like how she did it.
Fair enough.
That's just like my own opinion, I guess. But I said it earlier, but Catwoman's accomplice Holly of being an earlier Robin.
Yeah.
Interesting. Don't even know why she's there.
I mean,
in the movie at all, to be honest.
Probably just for that one bar scene, really.
Probably. Catwoman's a socialist.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, definitely, she would have been at the Occupy Wall Street movement for sure.
Scum. And you know, similar to Batman's methods of interrogation, talking about that scene of where it's like, I've given you this and I need my information. If I get hosed, I've got a backup plan because I'm not going to give you what you want, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just like her kind of arc of wanting that fresh start, and then Bruce being the one that can somehow offer it to her of, I can actually do this. Like, I bought this technology a lot.
Yeah.
Like, so I'll give it to you. My main thing is like Bruce being betrayed by her trusts her way too quick.
Yes,
he literally comes back to town and she's the first person he like contacts, basically.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, I'll give you that fresh start if you help me do this.
Yeah.
And he's joking with her and stuff. I would be so mad.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Well, especially considering how like you legitimately walked me into a trap. Like the reason why the city is in the state that it's in is like arguably due to you. Yeah. But I mean, I get the idea that, okay, I'm going to make this argument because it's a pretty compelling argument. If you don't help me, that bomb's going off and you need a way off this island here.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next character.
Robin/John Blake.
Just John Blake.
So
good old John Blake.
So here's the thing. Like, I like the character. I think I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's a good actor, and I like what he brought to this movie. You know, and kind of how we discussed earlier, he is kind of an amalgamation of like the three main Robins that we got in the comics. You know, he's a cop like Dick Grayson. He's kind of a hothead, kind of got, you know, angry issues, and like, saw his dad get murdered like Jason Todd did. And he also figures out Batman's identity like
right away,
like Tim Drake did.
Right.
So, but that being said, ultimately his role in this movie is primarily just to be a torchbearer. You know, this is somebody,
the Terry McGinnis kind of situation. Yeah, Dick Grayson when he takes up the mantle.
Essentially, like the only purpose he really serves in this movie is essentially for Bruce to pass the baton to, essentially.
Which that's kind of the point of these movies, was for Batman to become a symbol.
Right, exactly. I just feel like the arc was rushed. Again,
a little bit, yeah.
I mean, I think it would have been a lot more satisfying if he was introduced in a previous movie and they were working to this setup, because this movie...
Well, I mean, it's 8 years after Dark Knight.
No, I understand that.
So he would have been a kid, basically, or a teenager, essentially.
I'm not saying introduce him in the Dark Knight, because I feel like, you know, if you introduce... Because, I mean, the thing is with the Dark Knight, I mean, I feel like everything in that movie served its own purpose, and it's already packed to the gills already as it is here.
Right.
I'm saying if you had like a movie in between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises or something like that.
For sure.
In terms of like, you know, wanting to do this story arc, if you had more time to flesh out the character and flesh things out, then I think that would have been, you know, you would have stuck the landing a little bit better with this story arc.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, you know, I like the character John Blake. Like, he's a cop.
Mm-hmm.
He has that orphan background, like, you know, a lot of the Robins do.
Yep.
Him along with, you know, Lucius and Commissioner Gordon are kind of the ones that convince him to be Batman again. And it was kind of out of nowhere where John Blake's like...
He just shows up.
It was, well, yeah, he shows up to Bruce's house. He's like, when I was young, I knew who you really were the first time I met you. Type of thing, you know, like he knew he was Batman.
Lazy writing.
Yeah, he becomes a detective, obviously, throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of evolving. He's growing as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he shoots 2 guys. He throws his gun away. He's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. Throws his badge away.
Throws his badge away because he's just like, people are stupid. They don't actually use their brains. They just listen to orders.
Yeah.
You know, and then just the corruption within the police department, even with Gordon. Like,
yeah, no,
because Gordon lied about the Harvey Dent stuff, and that's kind of a huge plot point where Bane reads his speech of resignation, you know, and how he lied about this in order for this to happen. And then when he found that out, he's just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So next up on the list, we're kind of going to go over what we like and some of our favorite quotes from the movie here.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start it off. So the plane scene, pretty good. Like at the very beginning of the movie here, you know, you essentially got Bane doing skyhook with an actual airplane here. Like mostly done with practical effects.
Yeah.
I wish it went longer because I feel like that was like a little too short for like such a really genius action set piece.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
I do like how they tied in the League of Shadows to Bane, just because it makes logical sense as to why this guy can beat up Batman. He's had the same training. He's a little bit younger. He has like, you know, more ferocity, obviously more jacked than Batman here.
Well, Bane would have been older.
Would he?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Trying to think about that.
Because Talia is probably more closer to his age.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to break out the timeline on that here.
I mean, it's not weird for, I guess, Bruce to go with a younger lady, but
he's with younger ladies all the time.
Yeah, but anyway, like I thought that whole piece of bringing League of Shadows in, having Ra's al Ghul a part of it, was kind of, you know, bookending it because it started with that.
Sure,
I thought it was cool. I'll talk about this with what I don't like.
Okay,
but I just don't like the Talia character at all.
Yeah, we'll get into that here, but the Return of Batman, probably the best action movie in the scene here. You know, it starts off. You know,
all the cops are after him.
Bane and like his hostages from the stock exchange market.
The lights go out.
Oh, the lights go out, and then you just hear the bat pod and all that, and then you know you have him doing a jump off of the that truck and all that, and then it ends with him going into the alley and then getting the bat, or you know, as you know from the comics, the Batwing. Yeah. Yep. So no, really good scene. Now in terms of like the best scene in the movie period, I think has to be the climb where he climbs out of the pit, just because for one, this is kind of like what the movie's been building towards. It's like Bruce has lost his will to live, and this is him actually finding his will to live again here and actually saying, okay, I'm no longer just looking for a good death. I'm actually looking for a good life here.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene is probably, I don't know, there's a couple of them that come to mind, but just like the last fight scene I liked a lot, where like the cops are actually like on Batman's side finally.
Yeah.
And they all fight together type of thing.
I mean, really quick turnaround for like the cops to be like hunting Batman down like a dog to like, you know, being super cool with him and like fighting with him within the same movie. Here,
I mean,
you know?
if you get to that point of desperation,
sure, no,
you're going to take anyone you can get.
No, I understand why it was done. It's just kind of an odd thing to do within the 2.5 hour time span.
Sure.
Here.
I also like when John Blake goes into the hospital and he's like he you know takes the 2 guys, he hears the gunshots, he runs upstairs, and then
Gordon's
gun pops on. He's like, check your corners, rookie.
Yeah,
like, love that part.
Yeah, no, that's a
probably
good part.
That's a great quote.
That's a great quote. Yeah, but now going back to the climb scene, I mean, like, you know, one thing I don't think we really talked about like in our previous Thursday throwbacks is the score in this movie, because Hans Zimmer like really, I think really does a great job in this scene in particular. Like, it's super good.
I talked about like the theme of the Dark Knight, like that one kind of note that kind of is like,
where it's like a guitar note just like getting more tighter and just like escalating the, Yeah.
That tension.
Yeah, that tension. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
even Catwoman's scene was cool in this movie. I liked it.
Yeah.
Just to like doo-doo. Like the little.
Yeah, kind of playful, but also very like subtle piano. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. What else we got going on here? Oh, just a couple of quotes. So I think my favorite quote from Bane is when he's down in the sewers. They brought him the police commissioner, and he's like, "Why did you bring him down here? This is like the last person I want down here right now." And then they said, like, you know, search him, and then I'm gonna kill you next. And then Gordon makes a break for it and like goes down the sewer main, and Bane's saying like, "Okay, show me his body if he's dead." And he's like, "Well, it's hard to pin him down just because he's like the water main goes like anywhere.
Yeah.
So he puts a phone into his pocket, says, "Follow him,"
and just shoots him.
and then just shoots him.
Yeah, and he pushes him in basically. Yeah. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then best Batman line, "This isn't a car." When Catwoman saying like, my mother always warned me about getting in the cars.
Yeah, and he takes off.
And he's like, "This isn't a car."
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was great. Bruce Wayne, when he's in the prison, you know, they're talking about like, you know, fear is why you fell from the climb here and all that. And he's like, "I'm not afraid. I'm angry."
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what you want from Batman.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I think my favorite Batman line in the whole movie, and I might mess it up because I forgot to write it down.
Okay.
Was when him and Catwoman are coming down to the sewers, and she goes, "Oh, he's right there. He's right behind." Or I can't remember. He says
like,
to the henchman,
"He's behind you."
Yeah, and he's like,
"Who?"
"Me."
Yeah.
And he's like upside down.
Yeah, call back from Batman Begins.
And then the next scene is him grabbing someone in the darkness.
Yeah.
So I liked that kind of callback to Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get any of that really in
the Dark Knight. No, I mean, there was like maybe like, just the one scene in China that's similar to that. But
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that's probably my favorite, you know, scene / I think it's just so iconic just when Bane's fighting him and breaks his back, you know?
It is. I mean, I do have a couple of reservations about that fight here, but we'll get to that in a little bit unless you got more to add on to the stuff that we like. And
I don't know. I really like John Blake as a character. I really like a lot of things about this film.
Mm-hmm. Getting fancy with the word film here.
Yeah, you know.
Sometimes
you have to. But yeah, let's talk about what we didn't like.
All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, John Blake, in terms of like how he found out Bruce Wayne is Batman, very weak. Now, I mean, here's the thing. You're a detective. You know, you could have actually, or like a cop, you could have actually, you know, used that rationale to actually explain, you know, a more practical or logical way of finding that out. But,
sure.
You know, one of the main things I have a problem with this, in this movie is Talia effing Al Ghul.
I agree 100%. I don't think she's a good actress at all.
No, Marion Cotillard, I have not seen a movie that she's been in that I like her in.
What else is she in?
She was in Inception.
Of course.
She was in Public Enemies.
I don't think I've seen that.
That's the one with Johnny Depp and Christian Bale.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
Never saw that one? Okay. She was also in that one movie with Russell Crowe called A Good Year and all that.
Nope.
But, yeah. So, I don't think she's a good actress. I think she overacts on things. And look at her death scene in this movie. It's absolutely like one of the worst death scenes I've seen in a mainstream movie here.
Doesn't she just like die in that car though?
Yeah, well, she's legitimately talking,
and then she just
goes narcoleptic.
Yeah.
Stupid. And here's the thing. Talia's inclusion in this movie is really just to serve the purpose of a last-minute plot twist.
Totally. There's no point for her being
there. Is none besides that. And even the plot twist doesn't make a whole lot of sense here. It's like you could have literally just cut her out of the movie, just had Bane really fill like any role that she has like after the fact that she reveals herself to be Talia al Ghul, and it would have been the same movie, just except without a shoehorn plot twist.
Yeah, and I think that it honestly takes away from Bane.
No, it absolutely does, because then Bane gets like an absolutely lousy death scene after that.
Yep.
So, the football scene I think is very out of place for a Batman movie. I think you could have like done a different way to like get Bane to like relay his message to the citizens of Gotham and also the world. Now the nuclear reactor that essentially becomes like the MacGuffin of the movie, or the central plot device, I think it makes the tone suffer. I think it makes the pacing suffer, and I think it makes the plot suffer, just because you have like this thing that it's going to take 5 months for it to go off here. It's like, it just makes it like just a really weird plot device. And
totally.
And it's also a very like un-Batman plot device here. Like, this is something I would feel like Superman or Iron Man or something like that. It belongs in one of their movies, not Batman. But Batman in the first fight with Bane, I don't know why, but he fights so slow. And
I think it's just his being retired for all that time.
And here's the thing. Like, I initially thought like, okay, yeah, that's the reason why. But then you see him like in other scenes, like on the rooftop scene, where he's like fighting a lot quicker and like, throwing punches a lot faster here.
Maybe because he knew how big this guy was, trying to get more power behind what he was doing. I don't know though.
I don't know, because I mean, I just think it was I think it was just a very weak display here. It's like, I felt like, yeah, I don't know.
No, I get it.
Let's see what we got else here. Okay. Bane using Gordon's speech to convince the city that Harvey Dent was corrupt. So here's the thing. Obviously, it's kind of a stretch for, Gordon to have his speech on him when he's like going down into the sewers chasing after Bane.
Well, yeah, because I was trying to figure out how he got it.
Right, because I think, yeah.
When they searched him.
Well, and not even that. It's like, I'm pretty sure a couple days go by after that whole event where he's, about to say, hey, this is the speech that I wrote about the truth about Harvey Dent. And then he still has it on him. That's right. Like, obviously, okay.
It's kind of weird.
It is weird. And then whatever. But the thing that bugs me about it is like, so are all the people in Gotham just idiots just because they're going to just like, take Bane's word, that says, hey, there's this guy that I got a speech off of him. He wrote this. I have no way to prove that he did write this. But, you should believe me.
There's a lot of stupid things like that in this movie. Like, even the whole idea that, how did John Blake figure out who Batman was? But Commissioner Gordon had no idea. Until the very end when he goes and says,
Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
He's like, Bruce Wayne? After he kind of given that riddle.
Well, yeah, essentially, like, told him that.
You're the one, you put a coat around me and comforted me.
Yeah, like when my parents were murdered.
Yeah.
But no, it was, no, I mean, there's a lot of that in this movie where it's just like lazy writing, plot holes, just kind of like sloppy handiwork for like, compared to like the first two movies, I felt like they really nailed down like, okay, this like kind of the writing, all that stuff here. And like, when we did our Thursday throwback, we had pretty few things to complain about with those movies here.
Yeah.
This one doesn't quite get that luxury, but I think another thing that I just don't understand, why in God's green earth would Bane keep the cops alive underground for 5 months? Why? It legitimately makes no sense.
More hostages? I don't know.
Well, I mean, why would you have like...
They're essentially in jail.
Right,
like,
but...
They're locked up at that point.
But that's 3,000 police officers that could pose a threat to your domination and rule in the city. And instead of just like letting them starve and die in the sewers, you're like, we'll give you food and supplies and all that, just so that, you can just stick around for a big battle that we're going to have later and all that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it legitimately makes no sense whatsoever. And then how is Gordon still on the police force at the end of this movie, after being essentially ratted out as, a corrupt
because everyone else is worse.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know, man, because apparently, according to like this movie, after the Dark Knight, they cleaned the streets pretty good, and there's no organized crime, there's no corrupt cops or anything like that. So it's like, I don't get it.
I don't know,
but I think a big issue with this movie is, we kind of talked about this previously with other things, but it's like, there's a lot of story that is writing the characters and not the other way around, where the characters and their motivations write the story and you see things play out. You have characters serving roles or doing things that don't really line up with their motivations all that much, and just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I was trying to remember what I was going to say. I had something and then I totally blanked. On things that I liked but wasn't too sure about, because we're going into what we're kind of lukewarm about, indifferent about, I guess. But
right,
yeah, I don't know. I think there's just a lot of that in this movie. Probably
there is a lot of lukewarm elements to it, where it's it's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad, it's just kind of somewhere in between.
Right. Yeah. I guess we could just jump into that then.
All right.
Yeah, for me, a lot of what you said, it kind of, just what I'm lukewarm about is just the whole ending of the movie.
Yeah.
Because Alfred alludes to it through his little fantasy he has, but he's also actually on vacation.
Yeah.
His fantasy is that when he's on vacation at this cafe, he sees Bruce across the street with a wife and kids.
Yeah.
And they're happy.
And
that's what he wishes for Bruce.
Yeah.
And, we essentially get that.
Yeah. I mean, essentially Alfred does spoil the movie in the first
Do you remember
act.
Some people were trying to say that was his imagination again?
Yep. And no, I've had very passionate arguments with people who've believed that, and I've even told them here's the thing, there's legitimately a bunch of facts that I can bring out,
because some people are Batman's dead.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
Proving why this is not a hallucination here.
Yeah. Fix the autopilot.
Yeah, fix the autopilot.
And Bruce Wayne's name's in there.
Also, just the fact that there's that part when they're going over all the things from the will. It says have you found the missing item yet? Is they're not yet. Well, keep looking. We can't leave a string of pearls on the manifest as lost. And then when you go and see that scene with Alfred and Bruce in the cafe, Catwoman's there wearing the pearl necklace.
Yeah.
So, come at me. Yeah. I mean, your move.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
No, yeah. There's a lot of things with characters and stuff where I'm I don't even know why you're here.
Yeah.
I already named a couple. What's the name of the police guy who's underneath Gordon?
Yeah, no, this is one of the things on my.
He's just a punk.
Yeah,
he's
Foley.
A coward. Yeah, he's a coward.
Foley. So here's the thing, Foley. I think this is kind of what I'm kind of getting at in terms of saying this is almost two different movies kind of mushed together here, because Foley in the first half, I get why he's there. He's kind of to be the antagonist in terms of being in the police department. He's
right.
the one leading the charge against Batman, saying that, okay, yeah, this guy, we need to kill him because he killed, Harvey Dent. But after, the second half of the movie, and then, after all that comes out to be a ruse and, a lie, basically, there's really no reason for him to be in the movie any more than that here. He got way too much screen time he deserves in that movie. He has like a little like mini arc where he's like not wanting to like, go against Bane just because he's going to die doing so.
And then he goes full on ceremonial gear with his white gloves. Basically like he was going to a funeral.
Yeah.
Which essentially he was.
Yeah, his own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, just his inclusion in that was like just kind of a waste of time. You could have probably spent that time on like, developing, John Blake, or even Catwoman's redemptive arc or something like that. But yeah,
was he just another actor from Inception that Christopher Nolan wanted to get in there?
I don't remember seeing him in Inception. I could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing him in there. But I mean, one of the things that I'm kind of lukewarm about is I like what they were trying to do with this movie, because essentially it's trying to take story beats from The Dark Knight Returns, Nightfall, and No Man's Land. You got the whole Dark Knight Returns element with like him being an older Bruce Wayne. Even like the ending is very reminiscent to The Dark Knight Returns with him faking his death and all that. You also have the whole like Bane story arc in terms of like him like beating Batman, running the city. That's straight out of Nightfall. But the whole like Gotham as a failed state that you see like in the second half of the movie, that's straight out of No Man's Land.
Yeah. So something I remembered what I was going to say earlier. Something I did like, but I thought it was just really weird, was they brought Scarecrow back again, and he's like the judge of this court that basically just kills people.
I mean, that was kind of like
that they don't like.
That was more of like a joke.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But I mean, it when you think about it, legitimately doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, this is like a bioterrorist that tried to poison our city like about, I don't know, less than 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and we're gonna just be like, oh, we cool, I think
it was just a tie-in in the first movie again.
Sure.
Like, I'm still around.
Yeah, exactly.
Type of thing.
But now, going back on to like, the whole like all their inspirations they're pulling from the comics. I mean, I like what they were trying to do with those. I feel like they were juggling too many elements here because, I mean, again, like this movie would have been better served if you took like some of those elements, had another movie in between, and then had them, carry on or get fleshed out in that way here.
Sure.
So, and one of the things that I think a lot of people have issue with in this movie is Alfred leaving. Like, in the first third of this movie, basically.
He's just gone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand like why they had to write him out, just because it would have been like, you wouldn't know what to do with him if after he gets his back broken and he disappears. It's like, okay, it's like, what do we do with this character? Because really the main reason why we have him in this movie is his relationship to Bruce.
Right. And he's not around for most of the movie.
Right. So I mean, but it does cut against his character just because it's like, this is someone that has vowed to protect Bruce in absence of his parents here. And it's just like, like him leaving, like, is not really like following through with like that motivation. Even in The Dark Knight Returns, it's like Alfred literally dies like blowing up Wayne Manor, protecting his secrets here to make sure that everything goes according to plan here.
Yep.
And like he's with them till the end.
Totally.
Yeah. We already talked about Foley. I think so in terms of the ending. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the ending. Now, here's the thing. I like the ending. I don't think it's earned, because the thing is like John Blake should not have taken the
formal martial arts training at all.
No, other than just being a cop and just doing some things.
It's a symbolic thing. I get that, but it in no way should he take over as the Batman.
Well, it's like it. I get what they were trying to do with it, but the thing is like, it doesn't make sense just because.
And there's a redone bat signal on the top of GCPD when Commissioner Gordon goes up there.
Yep.
So Wayne had the time to go up there and install a new bat signal.
Yeah.
Before he left.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe after the fact here, who knows? But no, it's a one of those things where it's like, if John Blake found the Batcave and Bruce was down there, it says like, all right, training starts in the morning here or something like that type thing.
Yeah.
That would, I'd be like, okay, that's actually, a little bit more believable here, at least in terms of him taking over the mantle, as opposed to just say, oh yeah, I found this sweet cave. It's got like a super suit in it and all this
these
stuff.
Gadgets.
Yeah, exactly. But and then also like Bruce and Selina's relationship, it's like, it literally happens like the last minute of the movie. And then, you're supposed to believe that they lived happily ever after. It's like, no, you didn't put any work into like fleshing that out either here.
Not really.
So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, there's elements to that ending where, I like it. You should have earned it though.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with the whole ending piece. I thought it would have been way better suited. I was kind of waiting for Bruce to be in the Batcave.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he finds it and he's just like, hey,
what's up?
Like, or you could just show him, like him look like rising up on that platform and then he's like standing up there or something, just like looking.
You don't have to say any words.
That's
here.
it.
But with John Blake and Catwoman, those characters are very problematic just because they're introduced in this movie. They have like big story arcs that impact the overall movie and the ending. And it's like, it gives you very little time to actually, flesh it out and make it satisfying. If you had another movie in between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises and you introduced those characters there, probably would have panned out a lot better. Just my 2 cents.
No, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that piece.
All right. So time to get into our final thoughts on the movie and wrap this thing up. So, compared to most superhero movies, this movie actually holds its own. It's pretty good by I would say your average superhero movie standards here. I think compared to the first 2 movies, it's absolutely weak compared to the first 2, just in terms of writing, story, directing, action, pretty much the whole shebang here.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is quite a bit in this movie that I do like and I do enjoy, but for everything that is good in this movie, it feels like it has something that in there that detracts from it.
Sure.
And I think this is a prime example of a movie trying to do too much and too little of a time here. It's kind of like, Rise of Skywalker, trying to juggle too much and trying to wrap everything up in a nice bow here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one, I think that the movie's trying to serve too many masters and it ultimately fails, on all those fronts. It doesn't make one of those storylines completely satisfying.
Yeah.
And again, if this movie was split into 2 movies, I think this would have been a lot more satisfying, been able to flesh out things more, would have stuck the landing, I think, a lot better. I mean, ultimately, I am glad we got this movie. It's a movie we needed, but it's not the one we deserved.
What do you mean by that?
Well, here's the thing. I know I said that phrase quite a bit on this podcast, but it is what it is. So, I mean, I wanted it to be at least comparable to Batman Begins. We waited.
Oh, sure.
We waited 4 years for this movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing. I'm not saying hey, I have the constitutional right to have a good Batman finale trilogy movie here.
Right.
I'm not saying that. I'm just more or less making kind of a joke in terms of the Gordon speech at the end of the movie. Yeah. But no, I think, this obviously with The Dark Knight, with how it ended, it's setting up for, another storyline. It's, you can't just leave what happens at the end of The Dark Knight hanging here.
Right.
So, so we did need this movie to happen, regardless of how it
Something
panned out.
Happen.
I just wish it was better.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think for me, my final thoughts, compared to most superhero movies, this is a great movie.
Yeah.
The weakest of the 3 movies in the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Seldom, if ever, is the last in a trilogy the best.
It's a hard thing to do here. It's a tough act to follow.
most of the time I like the first movie the best. This and the original Star Wars trilogy would be the one where I differentiate with liking the second one best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think compared to the first two ones, it's weaker. I don't think it's like way worse. I would say I like Batman Begins more than this movie for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, I think if you cut out some of the fat of this movie, it'd been a lot better.
Yeah, no, I think if it's like I said, it's a slow paced movie, but it's very busy at the same time.
I don't think. I mean, I know you like the pit scene. Like, there didn't need to be a pit scene at all, to be honest. It could have been him at home, addicted to pills, trying to get stronger than Bane, like the actual Nightfall series, and then Dick Grayson.
Well, that's
the Venom series.
That's the Venom series, yeah.
But something like that, maybe where he is training up and he has to train, like that would have been a cool way to like sling a Nightwing thing in with John Blake, or
but
I don't know. 6 months is not a long time to learn martial arts.
Well, not to mention too, it's like, do you really want to see this beat cop turn into like a Nightwing, like right in the same movie? I mean, wait, like you're already. Like, this movie's already rushing a lot of elements as is. I don't want him to be in a super suit within the same movie.
Super suit?
Yep.
No, I like Talia al Ghul should not have been in this movie.
No.
Period. I don't think. I think it should have just been Bane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like I said, good movie. I'm glad we got it. Like you are.
Mm-hmm.
I just really. There's the whole what if type of thing. What if Heath would have been around, and how much more Joker we could have gotten. And I think I wrote something in my notes where it was kind of a question I had of, do you think they just kind of, because this definitely like what Bane did, the Joker could have done.
Yeah, I mean.
Do you think they kind of recycled maybe a plot line they had for the Joker?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, obviously the whole like nuclear reactor thing, I feel like that was mostly done.
Maybe not that piece, but like the Wall Street thing and stealing
I feel like
the company from Bruce.
I feel like at least like the Wall Street thing and like the kind of eat the rich thing.
Yeah, totally.
I think most definitely could have, and it did in the Joker here. You saw that, but I mean, no, I think the in terms of the nuclear reactor, that was solely done for Bane just because they needed a reason to have like Bruce be gone for 5 months. And also have a threat, a looming threat in the background saying like, okay, this is still here and it's still going to cause a lot of carnage here.
Right.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's all I got.
So, all right.
Well, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Check us out on our social medias at You Heard Nerds. And look for our next weekly episode coming out on Monday. And then we're going to get into another Thursday throwback of, pay attention to our social medias. We'll announce it soon. Mostly because we haven't talked about it. But, so have an awesome week. And remember, everyone's a nerd about something.
We out.
Bye.